Welcome to the For the Love of Language podcast. My name is Stacy. This is EJ. And we had like a theme going when we started the podcast, and then like EJ threw me off, and now I'm like, well, how are we going to start this? Are we just going to freeball it for the rest of our lives? That's fine. Hi. Today we're going to talk about politeness. EJ, what does it mean to be polite? You're a parent. You're teaching your kid this actively, aren't you?
That is a really big question to start this off with. Like, I would consider my 2-year-old relatively polite, but
Okay.
I have also seen him just like push another kid, and then you question, where did that come from?
2-year-olds are a special breed.
Right, but no, he's been learning how to say please and thank you, which we like to call politeness. But you know, I think politeness is actually really huge. Like, it's more than just these little platitudes. Like, there's these words that we always call out as polite words.
Yes.
But you could totally say thank you, like, super sarcastically and disdainfully, and that would not be very polite.
Yes. Politeness in formal linguistics falls under the umbrella of pragmatics.
I love pragmatics.
Yes, pragmatics being how, when, why are you using language in the first place?
Right, it's the intent of your utterances rather than just the literal words that you're speaking.
Yes, it's all of the context, the nuance, all of the, like, who are you and your identity and how that's, like, influencing your language and stuff. Pragmatics is huge. And politeness kind of falls under that umbrella where, you know, we do, every language has certain words that may be more polite than others, or more like different structures that might be considered more formal or more appropriate for certain contexts, but it is going to vary greatly. There is no like universal politeness scale.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think when people think about politeness and formality in language, the thing that tends to come up a lot, and that I think we've touched on in the past, is second person pronouns. So the different words that you use for you in languages, and how, like, in English we just have the word you, but in other languages like Spanish you have tú and usted. So there's a formal and an informal version. In Russian it's ты and вы. There's lots of languages that have these. I believe Japanese, I've heard, has more levels of formality in those actual words. But that's just like one little layer of politeness.
Yeah, that's like we said, the very surface level, because you know that's just an expression of the politeness, right? You don't need those things within the language in order for the language to work.
Right.
It is a linguistic reflection of cultural values, where there's literally no reason for this distinction to exist other than the fact that us as humans decided that there needs to be like social hierarchies. There's like certain social hierarchies and certain ways of communicating to like indicate intent, that we've built in this nuance.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, because I'm in this certain scenario and I want this thing, but I can't just, you know, beat a person up to get what I want. I have to dance around these social graces. And so I will use my words to do such a thing to get what I want.
How frequently are you considering beating me up to get what you want, Stacy?
Well, see, you live far away, so I don't beat you up. But when it comes to like the bartender at the bar who just won't look at me, even though my hair is 3 different colors, that I will consider.
No, I love it. It's a good point. Like, politeness in some ways, like, we have these norms across society that help you know the intent of what people are saying if everyone is using these norms in the same way.
Yes.
And so that is kind of cool. And like in English, I mean, let's talk about how politeness comes across in English because I think
Yeah.
in some ways it's a little bit more subtle because we don't just have these grammatical and morphological differences most of the time.
Yes, we have our P's and Q's, our pleases and thank yous. And so we have those formal things. We also have like yes, sir, yes, ma'am. We have like formal titles.
The sir and ma'am thing is very dialectal
It
in some
is.
ways. Like there's some
It
communities
is.
that use it a lot, and then there's some communities that don't use it at all. When I was
Yep.
in school in Germany in high school, I had some Scottish teachers, and one of them made the comment of like, yeah, I don't think anybody says sir or ma'am anymore. And I'm like, yeah, as an American, I can tell you that they do, but it's
They
it's
do.
not like it's not
Yeah.
everywhere in
It's
English.
not it's not everywhere in English. Those are definitely a little bit more nuanced, those like titles. But yes, I think broadly we have like a couple indicators, the pleases and the thank yous and the you're welcomes. And there are, some like some infighting between generations about whether you say thank you or that's fine, or like you're welcome and you say no problem. There's some little bits of debates about that, but
Mm,
generational divides aside, because that's ultimately what that is, between like just like those exchange words, the pleases and thank yous and the titles, English doesn't have much. We have kind of buried our politeness in stuff like our tonality, in our prosody, right? If you think
mm,
about English's use of sarcasm, that's a big one, right?
yeah.
The tone of your voice carries a lot of weight in English. Are you using a very sweet, happy, polite, uppity, hi, my name is Stacy and I'm here to help you kind of voice, or
Oh
are
my
you just
gosh,
like,
please don't speak like that.
you don't want to you don't want me to use my customer service voice on you, EJ?
I'd really rather you didn't. I'd rather have you just please swear at me instead.
Let me tell you, the old people in New York ate that shit up. They loved my customer service voice.
Oh, no, I worked in a stadium once for a big event. I think the Beach Boys were singing and it was like 4th of July or something. And I
Hmm.
totally did customer service, like, here, let me show you to your seat, sir, like all that. And
Uh-huh.
it was weird taking on that persona for a day.
But it's considered polite to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And so having a certain tone of voice makes all the difference. In American English, it's polite to smile. And people can say, oh, you should be smiling when you're on the phone because people can hear that. And it's
Yes.
true. It's so true.
And other cultures are like Americans. Why are they smiling so much? It's so fake.
And it's like, it's not necessarily fake, it's
It's
polite.
polite.
It's
Uh-huh.
polite to smile at people while you're talking, to show that you're paying attention, to show that you care. That's our level of politeness, right?
Yeah.
And also things like eye contact. Like when you're talking with someone in person, like how much eye contact you're making is also like indicative of politeness. Just like, how you bow in Japanese, right? When
Hmm.
and how and who you bow to, that physical gesture is also a sign of politeness.
And gestures are a part of language. Like
Hmm.
that's a clear aspect of communication, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I can give EJ a thumbs up, and EJ knows that I appreciate what she's doing. I can also give EJ my middle finger and tell her to fuck right off. And we've
Just so
got
you know, Stacy is actually doing that right now.
EJ has to know what I'm talking about. I have to show her, what I
Yeah,
can't
no,
just
it
say
makes
it.
it makes it real. It's like smiling when you're on the phone. Our listeners know that you're actually doing this
Yes, y'all can hear that I'm actually smiling through my microphone, and now you know that I
and
actually
flipping me
flip
off.
EJ off.
It's great. It's great.
But because we have rapport, that's fine.
Right. I know based on our pragmatic context
Uh-huh.
what is going on.
Yes. And so in this context, it's fine for me to flip EJ off because it's not impolite. But in any other context, it would be very rude.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's really interesting. because there's this distinguishing factor that we've touched on a little bit of, there's a level of politeness that you use in the social hierarchy
Yes.
of, like, I'm talking to my professor, I'm talking to a boss, or I'm talking to my child. Like, those are different aspects of social hierarchy, but there is unhierarchical or non-hierarchical.
It's vertical versus horizontal, right?
Thank you. We'll just say that. There is horizontal politeness
There
when
is
I'm
horizontal
speaking with
politeness.
Stacy that
Yes.
does actually matter. And that manifests differently and is probably even more subtle than the other hierarchical, vertical politeness.
Yes. Yes.
So, like, what are we doing right now to actually be polite with each other, even though we're joking about being extremely impolite with each other, right? Like, we are respecting each other's opinions. We're letting each other speak. Like, yeah, we do occasionally interrupt each other, but we try not to.
Yes, we give each other that space and we're actively listening to each other.
And active listening is, in some ways, a learned skill as well. Like, it includes things like validating what the other person is saying,
Hmm.
like acknowledging that they've said something, but you're saying, like, oh yeah, I understand that, or at some points even rephrasing what someone is saying to show that you've understood it. Like,
Hmm.
there's levels of that in conversation, versus if I was being really rude, I might just, like, not be paying attention at all, be looking in
Hmm.
another direction, playing on my phone, and just,
Yep.
like, outright ignoring what Stacy is saying, which would be a
Yep.
shame.
Or
Has a lot of good stuff to say.
we both have a lot of good stuff to say. It's great. Or yeah, like that active listening, like showing, like making maintaining eye contact, all that stuff. And it would be very rude if you just heard me stop speaking and then you just started talking about whatever it is you wanted to talk about, right?
Hmm.
It's that back and forth, those little nuances, the mm-hms, the oh yeahs, the like, well, maybe not, but expounding on something. That's built into the politeness structure, right?
Hmm.
And it leads to great dialogue because having that rapport allows for cooperation and communication. There's a reason that politeness exists, is because humans thrive off of connection and collaboration. And like meeting each other in the middle with a certain level of politeness, whether that be horizontal amongst like friends and acquaintances, or vertical, communicating with people who are above or below you in the social hierarchy. That's what allows us to do what humans were meant to do: collaborate and
Hmm.
come together and share ideas and do
Yeah.
it in a succinct, understandable way.
Yeah. There's one other point I want to call out here. Like, you talked about prosody, and we talked about some of these explicit words that are used just for the sake of politeness. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's something else about contextual word choice. Like, regardless of who I'm speaking to, if I'm in a classroom setting, I'm going to choose to use different words than
Yes.
I might if I was playing capoeira with a bunch of my martial arts friends.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And I think that really comes to show, like, a lot of that is explicitly learned in some cases. Like, sometimes you learn explicit vocabulary for a specific context of, like, oh, you're supposed to use this to express
Mm-hmm.
that here, where you might say this somewhere else. So, like, the context can frequently determine how you're polite. And I think we're taught this in
Yes.
school a lot when it comes to writing,
Mm-hmm.
of, like, okay, instead of using conjunctions, like, don't, write out, do
Mm-hmm.
not. And that is actually some level of politeness, a formality that you're bringing to your writing, even if you wouldn't speak that way. I think it's interesting when it comes to, like, text messages. An
Mm-hmm.
aspect of politeness is frequently putting in emojis to help people understand the emotion and
Yes.
the feeling behind what you're expressing.
Yeah, no, the like cultural shift in what is considered polite is absolutely insane, because now that the world is so different, right? Like we don't just have like written letters. We have things that are typed. We've got like emails, like formal correspondences. We do have like handwritten letters. We have text messages. We have tweets. We've got, all these different like levels and layers to now our written language, that like what is considered polite in all of these different contexts varies wildly, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
polite and it's normal to send emojis through a text message, not so much in a business email, right? And even though there's still like kind of the same form of communication. They're both written communication. And, of course it depends on like who you're even talking to, but like I wouldn't, even if I was emailing one of my best friends, I still probably wouldn't put emojis in my email, because it's very different from like the short little brief messages, right? So it is
Definitely.
really interesting how even like the context in which you're using like written language will also kind of carry with it. Like, okay, if I'm doing this over text, then it's okay for me to say this or do this. But if I'm doing this over email, then it's okay for me to do this and not okay for me to do that.
Yeah. What about when you need to say something rude? How do you make it polite? So like imagine the case where
Yes.
someone like really messed up and
Yes.
like you need to give them feedback so that they don't do it again. I
Mm-hmm.
think just stating outright, like if you want to do it politely, instead of just saying like, "Oh, you moron, why'd you do that?" You would say like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you some feedback." because you're gonna like preface it, you're gonna hedge it, say like, "Hey, this is where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you did. This was the impact. Like, please don't do that again." And that's gonna be relatively polite if you've actually stated like, "Hey, this might be uncomfortable," like almost like prefacing and
Yes.
preparing the person for it can
Yes.
be an aspect of making that run smoothly.
And I would argue that that format of approaching an impoliteness or of calling somebody out on their impoliteness is pretty universal, at least here in America, across the horizontal and vertical planes, right? Of like, it doesn't matter if you're talking to a child, if you're talking to like a CEO, if you're talking to a good friend or a loose acquaintance, being like, hey, I have a little bit of feedback. What you did was not okay. Please don't do it again. That's a pretty okay format for across the board, I think.
However, if you instead say, "No offense, but," usually whatever follows that preamble is pretty insulting.
That is true. That is true. And I
There's an
mean,
interesting dichotomy.
there is an interesting dichotomy because semantically, there's a bit of a distinction. But like, they occur in similar contexts. But with it comes a lot of like different levels of baggage, right? Different implications given your word choice, for sure.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. I don't
Yeah.
know. Are there other interesting like politeness faux pas that would be cool to touch on here?
Let's see. We touched a little bit on sarcasm. We touched a little bit on like
Mm.
word choice and tonality.
And I think that sarcasm, there's actually something I
Yeah.
could bring up when it comes to that. Like in cultures where you do have the tu and usted, the like
Mhm.
formal and the informal you, they usually have like names for it. Like in Spanish, it's
Yeah.
called tutear. It's the verb for calling someone tu instead of usted. And there's like the transition point is kind of interesting and usually has
Yes.
a bunch of like set, this is how you go about it. So like in Russian you would say, "Can I speak with you on the informal you?" Like there's structures that people use to
Mhm.
ask that. And there was once in Russia when I asked someone this, because I felt like, we talked a lot together and I knew her pretty well. And her response was like, "I don't care what you call me. Like, respect doesn't come from those words,"
Oh,
which
wow.
was like a really interesting call out, I thought. And I kept
Yeah.
speaking to her on the formal because I thought that was a kind of nuanced response.
Yeah.
But of like, even in these like cultures and these places where you have those things, there is still a question of like, what is the true intention? Like when you're using all
Mhm.
these formalities, is it sincere? Is it
Yes.
genuine? Or are you just basically buttering someone up or like trying to appeal to
Yeah.
someone's ego or something like that? And I just thought that was an interesting thing.
I agree. And I mean, we see the same things in English too, right? Like me putting on my customer service voice. It sounds nice, right? But is it coming from a place of like, I am genuinely interested in helping you and this is like a good way to communicate that I'm helping you? Or do I just have to keep my job?
And
Right?
sometimes it might be both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it is. It's a very like humanity is very complex, you know, and everything that we do, our body language, our, you know, verbal language, like all of these little nuances, we're just constantly trying to suss each other out and try to
Mhm.
understand each other. Like, is this person lying to me about something? Can I trust this person? Are they willing to like collaborate with me on this, or should I consider them as like not a valid partner in whatever endeavor I'm doing, right? And we're constantly like putting out these little feelers of like,
Yeah.
okay, well, here's where I'm at. Where are you at? And it's just a perpetual little dance that is that is done completely subconsciously.
Yeah.
And you'll never know for 100% if someone is like lying to you. It's really hard to like to suss that out, just because like you can never truly know what's inside another person's brain, no matter how much language you master. Trust me.
But we try.
We try, we
We
try, but you'll
try.
never quite get there. You know, we're not telepaths. So we're just constantly like trying our best, and that will manifest in a
Mm.
million different ways.
Yeah, that actually made me think of something because I think in general that's totally true of like a lot of these things we just do subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a friend in high school who had gone to like an etiquette school for a little
Oh,
bit,
interesting. Yeah.
and she was like rather strict on a bunch of like formality things of like, oh yeah, no one should ever wear jeans with a suit jacket. That's just wrong. Um some of those things.
That
And
is
like
very etiquette school.
it is very, very etiquette school. And just thinking about that, like there are people who do really value the formality of it. And then I think there's a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, why are we going through these steps?
Mm-hmm.
Why does this politeness crap even matter? Like I should just be able to say what I want to say. But
Yeah.
even the people who are thinking that are constantly using elements of politeness in their speech, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's not those like very explicit, super formal ones.
Yeah. I mean, in order to even convey that attitude of, I don't really like being polite, you have to do that in such a way where people understand that, you know, there's still certain social rules you have to follow in order to communicate how much or how little you're conforming to those rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of a funny, interesting, paradoxical situation.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, politeness kind of underscores everything, and the way that it manifests in language and in our bodies, and you know, even, you know, this is something that we had to talk about when I was in like cross-cultural communication classes when I was, you know, getting my TESOL certificate, right? Because
Teaching
you know,
English as a
teaching
second
English,
language.
yes. You have to understand how to communicate across language barriers and understand what kinds of things impact people, right? And that includes like standing too close to somebody, or, you know,
Oh my
reaching out to
gosh.
like shake their hand, and maybe that's not appropriate. Like, seriously, the way that you hold yourself, the way that you look at people is completely read by others.
Even if you don't want it to be, like, even if you don't
Yeah.
care, your choice to like shun the system is still a choice within the system.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. And there's no way that we can really escape it, because we're all human at the end of the day. We're all just trying our best to survive here. And so we gotta work with what we've got.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is very interesting that, you know, even how close you are to somebody, your physical proximity, just it's a whole other level of context that will be taken into account.
Right. Which also brings to mind, and we can wrap up here pretty quick, but
Yeah.
when you're talking about physical proximity, Zoom formality and politeness, like video conferencing throws in like a whole nother game and all of these. There's a bunch of cliches of
Yes.
things that like there's memes all over the place
Oh,
of like,
so many.
oh, you're muted, try again. Of just like
Uh-huh.
there's different things that have come up because of a relatively new way that we've adapted into normal communication.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it just kind of goes back to our point about technology. Technology has taken what little context that we have, because we used to only be able to communicate face to face, and now we have to consider all of these other things. Like, it's no wonder humans get tired all the time. We have to consider so much context just to communicate with each other. For real.
Seriously. Yeah, it is complex. It is complex for sure. And politeness is an enormous topic. So we've just kind of like rambled.
We've rambled, and we've touched just on like just the concept of what politeness is and how it manifests. But there could be an entire other podcast just about the way people express politeness in different cultures, and it would be a very long podcast. There would be so many different episodes. We're probably not going to turn into a politeness podcast, I don't think.
No,
but
I don't think our listeners would want to.
I'm sure there's some people out there who are doing that, and mad props to them for being those people. But yeah, I think touching on just like how politeness kind of invades our language and our perceptions of things, I think was a really important thing to just touch on and just like call out for a second, because it's everywhere. It's in everything.
Totally. Cool. Well, let's call it there then. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Instagram at For the Love of Language, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, send us your questions, your thoughts, your opinions. Give us reviews and shit, whatever you feel like. We're happy to have you. Thanks for listening, everyone.